Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the next level teaching, where we strive to take your faith to the next level. Yes, your faith in God, your faith in you, your faith in your ability. My goal with this channel is to really bring you truthful teaching to help you, to empower you in your walk with the Lord. And in my last video, I talked about just baptism and 7 key essential things that you might want to have in your walk as you get on that journey to go build your faith and to walk out a lifelong body of work of faith. What I want to get in today is this essential step number one. This is not in any particular order, it's just an order that I came up with. But number one is the background check. And the reason why I want to talk about the background check is because you're going to be tested or tempted or tried, however you want to say it, in your walk based on the experiences that you've had so far. So, whether it's relationships you've had, good and the bad and the ugly in those relationships, are going to be used to try or to tempt you to either grow or to essentially fail or to fall back into sin. So, with that, I want you to turn to Genesis, the 16th chapter. Genesis 16. And in Genesis 16, it talks about Sarai, which is Abraham's wife, and what she does. And we're going to read that and then we're going to discuss that, why it's important to do a background check so you know the things that might occur or come up in your walk of faith as a test. Now, Sarai, Abraham's wife, buried him no children. And she said unto her handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar, and Sarah said unto Abraham, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go unto my maid, it may be that I may attain children by her. And said Abraham, Hearken to the voice of Sarai. And Abraham's wife took Hagar, her handmaid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dealt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. And when he went in to her, Hagar, she conceived. And she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarah said unto Abraham, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judgeth between me and thee. But Abraham said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand, do to her as thou please. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled into from her face. We got to be careful when we take things into our own hands. Sarai, she thought she couldn't have kids, but she wanted kids so bad, especially because of the time. At that time, it was a privilege, and you were looked upon status wise as really something special if you bore a son to, a man. So Sarai was willing to go to any extreme to do that, and because she hadn't done that, and in her mind she had already wrote off that she wasn't going to be able to do that, she took it in her hands to go upon herself to have her handmaid to essentially see if she can conceive and carry a baby for her. But when she did that, that thing was very displeasing to her because she was able to conceive and she hadn't. But as you continue to read along, what you're going to find out is, guess what? Sarai was able to have a baby. And when she was able to have that baby, now she wanted to get the handmaid and that baby out of her presence. So, sometimes you have to be careful about how you go about doing things because if you make the wrong decision, if you make the wrong conclusion based on experiments, then what's going to happen is, essentially, there's nothing wrong with adopting, but I get it. People think they can't have kids and they just give up on it. Then they turn around. Next thing you know, they go from one kid to three kids because they were able to conceive somehow, and now they had twins, and boom, they got three kids now. Now they're overwhelmed. So you have to be careful when it comes to the Lord and His walk, that you're making sure that you're not taking things in your own hands. This event was used against her in her walk, in her faithfulness and obedience to the Lord. And I don't want to just show you one example. I'm going to show you many different examples in this lesson where you can see that things that you do in the past could come back to haunt you in this walk, because the Lord could be using or delaying something so He can use you in a special way. So, with that, I want you to turn to First Samuel. First Samuel, we're going to look at chapter 1. And what you're going to see in Samuel is this, that Samuel's mother was in a situation where she was longing for a child too, but she didn't go this route. She went another route. And we're going to see the importance of watching what you say, because what you say, sometimes you ask the Lord for, or what you were willing to do to have something, and then it comes up and you're like, oh, well, I didn't really mean that. This is going to be the prime example of that. So turn to Samuel chapter 1. And we're going to start at verses 9 and 11. So Hannah rose up after they had eaten at Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on my affliction of thy handmaid, and remember me, and forget not thy handmaid, but I will give thee unto the handmaid a child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. I'm going to go down to 20. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time came, was come after Hannah had conceived, and she bare the son, called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked of him of the Lord. So here's the thing. Hannah bared a vow that if the Lord would bless her with a child, with a son, that she would dedicate him to the Lord all the days of his life. And as we read through text, we see Samuel was special. But when Samuel his hair got cut by the razor, the covenant was broke. And sometimes we make vows, and those are covenants. We said we're going to do something, and then the Lord provides it, and then we got to keep that covenant, because if we don't keep that covenant, then it might bring trouble either on us or on our family and our generations. As you can see the story of what happened to Samuel when the razor hit his head, and people thought that the power was in the hair, but the power was in the covenant. And when the hair was cut by a razor, the covenant was broken. Just remember, be careful of the words that you speak. Now that you are coming into knowledge and you're reading the Word of God and you know a lot better about your words, this is why it's so important to look back on things that you've done that might be a hindrance to you, or some trials and tribulations that you might have to go through based on some of the things that you've done in your past. And the enemy might draw certain things to you just to try to tempt you to go back into those sins or into those ways. So now we want to look at Brother Paul. we're going to look at Brother Paul. So I want to take you to the New Testament. So I like to give you a little variety from the Old Testament to the New Testament. So I've given you two scriptures from the Old. I'm going to give you two from the New. And then I gave you two ladies. I'm going to give you two males, just to give you a nice variety, as you can see how in different scenarios their decisions and their mistakes came up some kind of way in their walk with the Lord. So we're going to go to Acts and we're going to look at chapter 7. So Acts chapter 7, and then you're going to see Brother Paul here as how his life was before he came to Christ and what factors or what happened in his life to draw him unto Christ. So Acts chapter 7, we're going to look at right now. Starting at verse number 58. And cast him out of the city and stoned him. And the witness laid down their clothes at the young man's feet, whose name was Saul. And they stoned Stephen, calling upon God, saying, The Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. So when you read these stories, I encourage you to read the chapter. I kind of paraphrase just for the fact of these videos to keep them short. But I just read certain scriptures so you can kind of get the basis and the content of what's going on. Paul was persecuting the people that were serving the Lord, and he really had consented to Stephen, which is one of the disciples, or one of the brothers that were serving the Lord, that got, you know, essentially crucified. He got killed. And you're going to now see that Paul done this at a lot of places, man. He was raising havoc on the church, on the believers, and a lot of people were scared of Paul. As we keep going, we're going to go into chapter 8 as we see more and more of the story. So it paints you a picture of Paul and who he was before Christ. So we're going to look at verse number 1 through 3 as we look at chapter 8. And Saul was consenting with his death. At this time, there was a great persecution against the church, which was in Jerusalem. And they were all scattered abroad throughout the region of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. And a devout man carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentations over him. As Saul, he made havoc of the church, entering into every house, and every healthy man and woman committed them to prison. So, man, he was going around throwing people into prison for serving the Lord. So let's keep going and reading on this Paul. We're gonna go to chapter number 9. But like I say, I encourage you, man, just to dig into this book and read a few chapters so you can read a full book. Because if I do it for you, then you're not gonna do it. But if I just give you a starter, then I expect you to pick up the torch and just finish the race. Saul, yet breathing out threatening and slaughtering against these disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest. So he goes into the high priest, go down to 4, and he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecute thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus from thou persecuted. Is it hard for thee to kick against the pricks? So as you see, Paul now has had an encounter with the Lord. And he had an encounter with the Lord because he was persecuting the church. He was persecuting his people. Let's continue in verse number 6. And he trembled and was astonished in the Lord. What wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. So if you think about it, now here's Paul getting instructions on the Lord on what to do. And Paul is blind at this time. The Lord blinded him. Now he has to wait for the instructions on what he has to do for the Lord. And I want to keep going down, but I want to skip down to verse number 11. And the Lord said unto him, Arise, go into the street, which is called Straight, and inquire into a house of Judea for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth, and he hath seen in a vision a man, Ananias, coming in and putting his hands on him that he may receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard many things of this man, how much evil he hath done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he have authority from the chief priests to bind all that call upon thy name. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is chosen vessel unto me to bear witness of my name before the Gentiles and the kings and the children of Israel. So now here's Ananias having to go to Paul and lay hands on him and pray for him so he can receive his sight back. And this is why I say you have to do a look on the in your background, because there might be some people out there that the Lord's chosen to use, but we're considering their past and not presently what the Lord's trying to do in their life to be used for the kingdom. And that could be you. That could be you. You could have a bad past, and now the Lord's telling someone to come to you and pray for you to or help you get to this because this is going to help his kingdom. But you're so focused on what the person used to be that you're, reluctant to do it because of what you've heard about the person or because of what someone's heard about you. So here is my next and last final point. I say the best for last, and we're going to look at Jesus. We're going to look at his walk. We're going to look at how his past came into play, but we're going to turn to Matthew. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 13. Matthew 13, and we're going to start at verse number. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these parables, he departed hence, and then he came into his own country. He taught there in the synagogue, and so much that they were astonished, and said, Where hence this man this wisdom and these mighty works? Is this not the son of the carpenter? Is this not his mother called Mary? Is his brother and James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And is his sister? Are they not all with us? When then his man all these things? And they were offended in him. But Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor save in his own country and in his own house. And he did not many works there because of their unbelief. That's what's going to happen to many people that get baptized. It's going to be the people that you grew up around, your family, your friends. They're going to look at you and say, well, uh, where did they get this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from? Where is their education from? All the things that happened to Jesus potentially are going to happen to you. And like he said, a prophet is not without honor amongst his own country. And you're thinking that these people are going to be the most supportive of you, but in all reality, they're going to be the most critical of you because they're going to say everything that they're going to relate to is going to relate to your family and how you grew up and what you're not because you're not having all these titles or you didn't go to all these fancy schools. So they're like, there's no way that the Lord is working in this person, and that is going to be your experience. So I'm telling you this so you're prepared, so you're not caught off guard and you get offended because of what the Word has spoken. So I want you to turn to John chapter 1, and what you're going to do is we're going to look at another instance and see what happened when it came to Jesus. So John chapter 1, And we're going to look at verse 43. And in the story, what you're going to see is Nathaniel talking about Jesus. And I'm not going to tell you, we're just going to read it to you. The days following, Jesus would go from Galilee and find Philip and say unto him, follow me. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said unto him, we have found him, whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph. And Nathanael said unto him, can there be any good thing that come out of Nazareth? Philip said unto him, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him, and he said to him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. And Nathanael said unto him, where hence thou knowest me? Jesus answered and said unto him, behold, that Philip called thee when thou was under the fig tree, and I saw thee. And Nathanael answered and said unto him, Rabbi, thou art the Son of God, thou art the King of Israel. Jesus answered and said unto him, because I say this to thee, I saw thee under the fig tree, thou believest? Thou shalt see greater things than these. And he said unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven open up, and the angels of God ascending and descending unto the Son of Man. So look at that. They told Jesus about Jesus, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? That's how people could potentially look at you when you're walking this walk of faith. And they might say, well, can any good thing come out of so and so? Can any good thing come out of this family? Can any good thing come out of that neighborhood? These are the experiences that are going to be used to test or tempt you. And if you're not careful, you're going to get offended and you're going to go back on your word because you're going to realize that, man, this is true. I didn't expect all this. So I'm giving you this information so you can go and read for your own self so you can be empowered to walk, to stay on your walk of faith. You too. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you got something out of this lesson. If you could, hit like or subscribe and keep watching the channel, keep watching my videos as I continue to bring you more information to empower you to walk a more wholesome life with Christ. All right, y'all be blessed.